En het is Boekenweek. Dus toch nog maar een stukje van Salman Rushdie, die deze week in een soort tweegesprek, een soort interview, zijn mening gaf over schrijven.
I have to say, well, there are moments as a writer when you think, where is this coming from? And is this all right? Like, not really all right, is it? Then you think, oh well, but this is what seems to be happening.
And you haven't written towards that point.
No, well, I mean, this book, I have to say, the experience of writing this book is quite unlike anything I can remember, except, well, the only experience comparable to it was when I was writing the second draft. I'll go back to the beginning. Midnight's Children, when I was writing it, the first draft was not written as a first-person narration. It was written as a third-person narration. It was rather longer than the book, even longer than the immense book that came out. And it was a mess. I mean, dreadful. There was no organizing spirit. And in order to try and fix that, I tried to write the second draft as a first-person narration. And I remember, very, very vividly, beginning to write the book in Salim's narration. And I've always thought of it as the moment I became a writer. Because this thing showed up on the page. This voice of kind of what seemed to me great strength and energy. And what's more, great determination. And it became very clear to me very fast that he was going to tell this story and I just had to hang on for the ride, And
that happened to you with Fury.
And he just took off, and I followed him. And while he was telling his story, I learned how to write. Really, that's how I felt it. And it hasn't happened to me since until this. And I really felt this book just came out of me. I mean, it alarmed me sometimes, the speed and the.
Were you grateful for the deadline? I mean, that must have helped.
I have a view of deadlines, which is the hell with them. That's my view. I'm sorry about the people who need to produce books and so on. But my view is, as they say, do you want it good or do you want it Tuesday? I think,
Does that mean you weren't under any pressure as far as the book?
No, the pressure was inside, not outside.
Right,
I mean, I was aware that actually I beat the deadline by some distance. I first extended it, then beat it. That's the thing to do. Always get yourself too much time. Then there's no deadline. See? So you lie to publishers and say you need much more time, and they swallow it, of course, and then you beat it by a month, and they're very grateful. So this is just a tip by publishers sitting at the front.
I'll keep that in mind.
No, but I mean, truthfully, this book came out of me like an express train, and it was the most bewildering, exciting, disturbing thing I've written for years as a result, and it was as if I would have an idea and I would then go back to read the bit I'd already written, and it was as if the idea was already prefigured there, even though I hadn't had it, And then, of course, it wasn't always like that. I had to go back and fix things in order to make sense of. Yeah, of course. I mean, I'm not claiming revelation here, But it was, for me, a very weird writing experience. And things came out which I had fully not expected. I mean, for instance, the way in which the character of Mila developed. I had not anticipated at the beginning of the book, but seemed to be so appropriate when it showed up, that actually I went back and wrote stuff and made her more like it, So
I felt sorry when, after about 2/3 of the book, she actually vanished from it. I felt it could have been expanded on. Do you think this is?
Well,
every say as a painter, every particular painting has this particular size, and I actually felt this book to be. It could have been expanded. It could have been longer.
Well,
I would have preferred it to be longer.
Well, every time I write a long book, people say they prefer it to be shorter.
I'm not complaining.
So I guess it makes a change,
But are you surprised if I say this?
Well, when I finished The Ground Beneath Her Feet, which is more than twice as long as this book, and took me almost 4 years, on the day that I finished it, sitting at my desk, I said to myself, shorter books more often. And this is my promise to myself. And I have said to everybody I know that if I ever get over 300 pages, hit me. I'm not going to write long books for a while. I'm going to write and I actually think the compression in this book is, gives it an energy which I like. I agree that you could unpack this material and make it 150 pages longer, and I don't think it would be better for it. Mila is there when she needs to be there, and then there's 3 women in the book, and they come and go, and they're there as much as they need to be, and I think it's good not to know everything about a character. It's good. I mean, Dickens used to tell you in the last chapter what happened to everybody in the life after the book. He'd even tell you what happened to the dog. Well, I don't want to know that. I don't know what happens to my characters when they leave the page. I don't know what happens to Mila in the next 25 years of her life. It could be that 25 years from now I'll find out, but I don't expect to. The point is the characters do what they're there to do, and then that's it. And I think this book has a kind of compressed force, which is for me the most exciting thing about having written it. That's what it felt like writing it. And I hope it feels like that reading it. I mean, so far a lot of people have said to me that it's kind of grabbed them and they've sat there and read it in a single session, which is, of course, one of the things you can do with a book that's 250 pages long, and you can't do with a book that's 650 pages long. And that's another reason for writing short books. Also, people don't like long books anymore. Have you noticed this? They don't.
Well, there must be an exception to the rule.
They don't like long books unless they're very bad.
Explain yourself.
That's to say, the world's crappiest writers can write 700-page novels and they sell a zillion copies. But if good writers write long books, people get bored. Go figure. You tell me. It's your fault.
You set a precedent, at any rate, as far as the Book Week gift is concerned. I mean, I weighed it on the kitchen scales. It's 247 grams, which is more than twice as much as any number of Dutch authors you'd care to mention. What I wonder also is that, being twice the weight and compressed also in the printing.
It's just 1 gram a page.
1 gram a page, you're quite right, but it might very well take the Dutch public 3 years to recover from a book like this, with all its complexities.
I don't think so. I think people read it in 2 hours and do something else. It's just a book. 250 pages isn't the Encyclopedia Britannica. It's a perfectly ordinary size of book. As I say, for me, it's very, very, very short. So this is my 90-page book. It just happens to be 250 pages long.
To end up with there's a fascinating sort of dichotomy between the living and the dead dolls in the book, shall I say. Mm-hmm. Was this something you'd been intending to do, or is it part of what you describe as the process of writing? You were impinged on by the thought?
Well, one of the things that happens, even in a book that comes out more slowly than this, is that you discover the shape of your idea. As you chisel it out of its raw material, you discover its shape. And so, for me, the discovery that this guy I'd got, who was a kind of retired doll maker, should then meet in New York, well, not meet, but sort of run up against the story of women who had, in a way, turned themselves into dolls and then got themselves broken. It was a discovery of shape. Mm-hmm. That's what, in a way, that's what you hope to find. That your imagination has come up with something shapely, and you of course try and discover, some of that shape before you start. In my case, anyway, otherwise you can't start. Or I can't start. But you do hope that as the book reveals itself to you, more and more of those echoes and assonances, mm-hmm. Shapelinesses reveal themselves, and that certainly was one.
The aspect of time has interested me. There's something strange about it. We mentioned it earlier. The fact that he goes to that Solanka has arrived in New York and really wants to destroy his own history, which he can't. Bombay is on the fringes there as yet. What What does charm him, though, are the possibilities of new technologies and the way that they make lateral jumps, you literally say, and are not interested in linearity. Is this pointing towards the future of storytelling?
Well, it is. Well, I mean, it's my first attempt at letting the internet into my books, you know. So there is a kind of .com thing going on in there somewhere. I'm not claiming to be kind of cyber novelist, you know, yet. And actually, I think most of the fiction that I've so far seen actually on the web, trying to be, you know, new, is just dreadful. You know, it's just unbearably awful. And of course, most of what is on the web is unbearably. The web seems to be there, place to put unbearably awful text, which I mean, somebody is writing and somebody is reading. I don't know who, but clearly there is a potential there, and I do think the non-linearity of storytelling that the web makes possible is very interesting. You know, the fact that you can have variant versions coexisting with the same kind of status. You know, that is interesting. I mean, I do think it gives the kind of potential to write the kind of story that Borges was thinking of when you wrote The Garden of Forking Paths. Right. You know, where you can write infinitely bifurcating variant versions.
But it's not something you would bring into practice.
I don't know. Never say never. You know, I don't know. Right now, I'm this old technology guy. I like things to be printed and held in people's hands.
And dangled.
And I was very interested. I went to a conference discussion about e-books in New York recently. And they had a servant of the evil empire there, you know, Microsoft. With Darth Vader, he was called. And he had this palm book thing. And what was impressive about it, well, I'll tell you what I didn't like about it. What I didn't like about it is that you couldn't see many words at a time. You know, you could only see about 100 words at a time, and I think that's odd, you know. But that'll change. I mean, the day after tomorrow, they'll have a book that's they'll have a thing that's the shape of a page, and we'll have 400 words just like, I mean, you can never argue about that, because that's just going to happen the day after tomorrow.
Right.
The thing that was interesting, I thought, and completely undid all my arguments, was that you could write on the pages. I mean, I thought the thing you could never do with an electronic book, I thought, is scribble on it. You know, which is, you couldn't write, you know, very true in the margin. But you couldn't write, I really disagree, you know, underline it 3 times. You couldn't turn over the page. You know, you couldn't do any of that stuff. Well, folks, you can.
You can, yeah.
You can. That's what's terrifying about it. You use this special scribble thing, and you scribble all over it, and the scribble stays on that page of the ebook. You know, it doesn't stay on the next page. That took the wind out of my sails a little bit. And of course, then it's much easier to take on holiday and so on. But there's still, you know, it can't fall in the bath, you know, so you can't read a book in the bath. And you know, if sand gets into it, then you can't take it to the beach. There's still problems, but I'm afraid they'll all be solved by the day after tomorrow. So clearly there will be books, and we'd better get used to it.
Salman Rushdie as the celestial puppeteer, what's his next move? Final question.
I've got this other short book to write. So I thought I'd write it.
We look forward to reading it.
Thanks.
Mr. Rushdie, thank you.
Thank you.